today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about how disconnection from your dreams ultimately undercuts everything in your life, even your marriage. A man with a vision becomes magnetic, grounded, and powerful in his life and in his marriage. What kind of man, or if this is a woman listening, what kind of woman would your son or daughter be proud of? What would your partner be proud of? Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about dreams, desires, and direction. We're going to guide you in reclaiming a vision for your life. Maybe you've lost your spark. Life feels like a series of obligations, providing, fixing, enduring. Somewhere along the line, your dreams took a backseat to survival. Or maybe you feel like you're on a mission, but you don't feel satisfied. You feel constantly frustrated. You feel constantly unfulfilled. The truth is, your dreams aren't gone. They're buried. They're misdirected. And reconnecting with them is not selfish. It's essential. A man with a vision becomes magnetic, grounded, and powerful in his life and in his marriage. And so listen closely. Are you constantly busy, yet feel like you're going nowhere? It's not unusual, right? The truth is that as guys, we want to be busy. We want to be getting stuff done. We want to be moving the train down the track. We want to be reaching our goal in life. But if we feel like we're going nowhere, the chances are we're either on the wrong track or we lost sight of what the station is that we're driving the train to. One of the two. There's probably some other possibilities too, but the train metaphor has limited application. It's not unusual, maybe even normal, for people of any gender to get locked into jobs that are not completely fulfilling and satisfying, right? Because we got to put food on the table. We got to provide. We got to take care of our sales, take care of the family. We've got to make sure that we're doing the right thing, right? Like one of our values is provision. One of our values is responsibility. And yet, we feel locked down. We feel frustrated. We feel like something's not right. So you remember Brad and Gwen, my favorite people? Brad had a steady job. He didn't just have a steady job. Brad was an entrepreneur. He had a business. He was on a mission in his business. He grew that business with that focus on that mission. That mission was fulfilling for him. And he provided for his family. But somehow he just couldn't break through a certain ceiling in that business, and that frustrated the heck out of him. And the more he tried to break through that ceiling to get to that brass ring of growth, the more frustrated he became. And he started to hate his business. And meanwhile, while he was struggling, reaching for that brass ring, he became more and more distant from his family. He would pay for them. He would show up at events. But he felt invisible. He felt disconnected. He wondered why he wasn't the parent that they went to when they had a problem. He wondered why when he said he loved them, he didn't get much of a reaction. He looked around and he saw he had the house of his dreams. He had the wife of his dreams. He had the car he always wanted. Everything he thought he wanted, he had. And yet, he was empty inside. He was angry. He was frustrated. No matter how much he applied his intelligence and his willpower to the problem, he couldn't break through. Well, I'm going to tell you, folks, this is not an unusual scenario. What's unusual about Brad is he was actually on a mission in the beginning. When you have no mission, a vision, or when the vision you have is one that maybe you got it from your parents, right? Maybe it's not really yours. Maybe you've taken on a job that doesn't really meet your innate skills or really fulfill you, but it's what your parents wanted for you. Or maybe there's something about the job that you're doing that you think pleases them and you think it should please you. When you have that, no vision or a misaligned vision, you drift. And your marriage drifts with you. Brad and Gwen grew further and further apart. And Gwen didn't notice, right? What Gwen did was she figured Brad was doing his own thing. She went off and did her own thing. She went and started her own business. And she was very successful. And she started a business where she was fulfilled and happy. She started a business where how much money she made wasn't that important. How big the business wasn't important. What was important was the depth and breadth of the difference that she made. And it resonated with her. And Brad got very competitive with Gwen. He got very upset with her. Till one day, Brad hit rock bottom. That was the day he got out of that business that he was in and rediscovered his vision for himself. Because what Brad found out was that visionless men, or men who have misaligned vision, they become reactive rather than proactive. He was reacting to her. Instead of being proactive about his life, he was trying to show her through his work that he was a good husband and a good provider. And meanwhile, he totally neglected the marriage. Without a personal North Star, one that aligns with our values and principles, check in with the last episode of Rich Relationship, everything becomes about accommodating the other person, accommodating key figures in our life, or surviving. That loss of fire impacts attraction and leadership. Brad was wondering why he and Gwen weren't intimate as much as they used to be, and why it was that he didn't even bother anymore. He was off pleasuring himself. He didn't actually cheat on her. He just didn't show up with her. And she didn't seem to mind. There was something really wrong with their marriage. Till that day that Brad hit bottom. And when Brad hit bottom and let go of that business and let go of what he thought was really important to him, he looked around him and he realized he hadn't been there for his kids. He looked and saw his wife and realized that she had allowed them to drift apart and he had allowed them to drift apart. And she was so fulfilled in her work that she didn't notice that their relationship was no longer nurturing her. And Brad vowed that he would change that. Brad came to me and he worked with me, and we worked on a new vision. One where his innate abilities, his skills, the things he was passionate about were all conjoined into one line of work. One where that line of work would allow him to rebuild his marriage with his wife, Gwen. Instead of defaulting to her vision and resenting her, instead of defaulting to the vision that he had adopted from his parents and resenting himself, he leaned in, took a journey of discovery, let go of his old stuff, and created a new vision for himself. And then he and Gwen sat down and rebuilt their shared vision, which interestingly wasn't that different than when they first got together. It just had been set to the back burner. See, the truth is that desire is not selfish. It's directional. When we desire something that's out of alignment with our values, it's because we feel unfulfilled in some way. Desire alerts us to the fact that something's missing. Now, what we do with that desire is something else. Full disclosure, Brad had considered that maybe something wasn't right with his marriage. He had been looking at other people. But what he realized was it wasn't other people he desired. It was that intimacy that he had with Gwen that he really desired. And it wasn't her fault. He realized it wasn't her fault. He had allowed that relationship. He had to go in that direction. He had not taken the lead as her friend and romantic partner. And he worked at it. He created a plan and he worked at it. You've been taught to suppress desire for the sake of responsibility, but what if your desires were the way to be responsible? What if acknowledging your desires and the true driver of them were a way to take responsibility? Just like Brad noticed that his roving eye wasn't really about them. It was about what he felt like he was missing. And when he turned his eye back to the prize, which was the commitment of his marriage, the love of his life, he was able to rebuild that friendship and rebuild that passion again. What if you could do that? In healthy masculinity, desire isn't about indulgence. It's about direction. It's about going to what's driving this desire and how can I fulfill it in a way that's in alignment with the commitments that I've taken on? How can I fulfill it in a way that's in alignment with my core values and my principles? I can't tell you how many couples I've had come to me where there's been infidelity and the guy or the gal says to me, I don't believe in stepping out in the marriage. That's why I'm here. I did it because I felt isolated and alone. I did it because I felt like my needs weren't being met. And instead of taking that back to their partner and saying, hey, wake up, they took it to someone else. They didn't just, and it wasn't even a conscious decision. The way that happens is by not acknowledging their unfulfilled desire, someone else came along and started to nurture a little fulfillment, a little sharing in a way that wasn't happening in their marriage. And it was in a way that didn't seem harmful. And then that grew. And then maybe they crossed an emotional line and committed what we call emotional infidelity. And then by sharing those secret emotions that were really reserved for their partner, eventually it led to something physical. That's kind of how it happens, isn't it? Yeah, there's some cultures where people move from person to person like a bee for going from flower to flower, but I'm not talking about that here. I'm talking about what happens when our desire isn't recognized. When it's not recognized, it finds other ways to find expression, often not in alignment with our values and principles. When we get clear about what's driving our desire and that the desire and the driver is not negative, it helps us clarify our values, set boundaries, and take the lead. It helps us to get clear about our personal mission, right? Brad got absorbed in some world mission that represented his true desire. I'm going to take a little segue here. If you think about what's the thing that upsets you most about the world, it usually has its root in some unfulfilled desire or need inside you. I'll give you a personal example. I was on a mission to address sustainability. I ran a sustainable business. It was in many ways changed the culture of the people who worked with me and the people who we worked for and the people around us. We educated people. We built thousands of feet of green roof, more than probably any company still has built in New York City to this day. And even though that was cool and it was fun and it was great to be on the cutting edge, what it really represented was I wanted to reweave ecological threads. And really what I wanted was to reweave my family threads, which had been totally shred. So the ecological mission was a reflection of an inner desire to reweave my family threads. And how did I get into this work? When I realized that what I really was doing was extending the desire to help people reweave their emotional and family threads so that they built stronger families and were more present for their children. I gave that work up and I started doing this work. What I discovered is that a man with purpose walks taller, listens better, and shows up stronger. What I discovered is that when I reclaimed my personal sense of mission, the events of my past that drive me to help people and do good in the world today, I was more energized, confident, and structured. The same thing happened with Brad, by the way. Once he started focusing on his wife and his family and made caring for himself first, taking care of his wife and family second, all of his work fell into place. He realized he didn't need to go for that brass ring. He already had everything he needed. He realized that relationships, how he ran the business, how he showed up for the people that he worked with in the business were more important. And when he did that, his business came back to life, just like his marriage. When your wife sees you lit up from within, it changes everything. She doesn't want a people pleaser. She doesn't want someone who's going to do everything she thinks they should be doing. She wants you to do what feels true to you. And when it feels true to you to serve her, she will enjoy it even more, as opposed to when you do it just because you think it's what she wants. You hear the difference? When you are motivated and driven to serve her because you love her and you know that this particular service, whatever it is that you're doing, will help her to progress as an individual, as a partner, and as a parent, she will be so much more lit up than when you do it because she says, "Could you do that for me?" And you go, "Oh, okay." Here's where to start. We're going to do a little exercise because it's not too late to remember who you wanted to be. We're going to skip the deep breaths today. If you want to take some deep breaths, I would suggest pause this and take 4 deep breaths if you can. If you're driving or you're on the treadmill, pause this for a second and recenter yourself. And then come back and I'm asking you this question. Are you ready? What did I want before life told me what I should want? And if you can, you might want to write about it. And I want you to frame this question this way. It might be more like this. As a child, what were the things I really enjoyed doing before my parents told me what I should be doing? What were the things I really enjoyed doing What were the games that I really enjoyed playing? What were the things I was naturally drawn to? Did I play baseball because my dad thought I should? Or did I play it because I really wanted to learn how to hit the ball and I really liked the interaction with my friends? And if you're journaling, or maybe you're on the treadmill and you've got your phone, I want you to maybe just speak some notes into what else lit you up as a child, as a young child from 0 to 7, what really lit you up? What activities really lit you up from 7 to 12? And it's funny, I'm thinking about this as I ask you these questions myself, and I'll share my own insights with you just because it's fun. What lit you up from 12 to 18? And what lit you up from 18 to 24? And from 24 on, what are the things from 24 on? What lights you up is pretty much a reflection of 0 to 7, 7 to 12, and 12 to 18, and 18 to 24. 18 to 24, it's kind of gelling, but and some of the things that have come up for me as I'm sharing this is as a child, as a small child, I always liked getting in the dirt and digging, right? And that's a lot of the work that I do with people today. I always like building things. I help people build relationships. I help people build traditions and structures for their family that continue to communicate their values and principles to their children and their children's children. At an older age, I like building models. I thought building models was really fun. I love to see the end result, how it would look when it was finished. I like that sense of completion. And so it's interesting in the work that I do with people, I don't do therapy. Therapy goes on for years and years and years. I do kind of an alternative to therapy where couples work with me and we work on it for 3 months or 6 months and then we're finished, right? I like to see when we reach that 6-month goal with them, what have they built? What have they created? What have we created together? Now, I want to ask you a question. You've been thinking about what lit you up, and maybe you've looked at some of the patterns like I see for myself. If time and money weren't an issue, what would you build? What would you create? What would you experience? I used to love to be in the ocean. I'm constantly around water now. What are the experiences that you need in order to continue to get in touch with that part of you that was alive and vibrant, that was dreaming? Here's a question for you. You can journal this. What kind of man, or if this is a woman listening, what kind of woman would your son or daughter be proud of? What would your partner be proud of? Now, this is a little murkier, but in fulfilling yourself, your own innate abilities, your own skills, how would your parents be proud of you? And don't think about the dreams they had for you that were really theirs. Think about how would they just be, if one parent to another, how would they be proud of you in the same way that you'd be proud of your son and daughter? Want to inspire your wife again? Find something worth inspiring her. I promise you that if you get out of this podcast and go, oh my God, I need to change my whole life. Honey, I get it. I need to do X. I'm so excited. I can't believe this. She'll say, it might be hard, but let's help you do X. And if she doesn't, either X isn't it, or maybe there's a lot more work you need to do in the marriage so that she can get behind you again. She might feel like we talked in one of the previous episodes, the balance sheet may be such that she feels so distanced from you that she might be like, go do X on your own because I really don't think I can be around you anymore. And if that's the case, I can help you. But even more important, once you have this clarity of vision, all right, you need to get that the people that you've been hanging around, the people that you've been spending time with, they have been supporting you in not doing it. Your family been supporting you. I mean, talk about your extended family, siblings, parents. They've been supporting you in not doing it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've been telling you, hey, you need to be more like Brad. You need to get up and change things. But for the most part, the people that we surround ourselves with support us in our BS. And so I'm inviting you to think about what would it be like to be in a community of people that's choosing to live an inspired and purposeful life? What would it be like to be in a community of people where everyone is striving to be personally fulfilled, to help their partners be personally fulfilled, and to fulfill their shared vision together, not at the expense of their individual fulfillment? They might backburner their individual fulfillment for a little while for the shared fulfillment, but it's really just weighing out sequences. It's weighing out priorities. It's not like they would totally shelf their personal development for the sake of their family. What would that be like? How inspiring would that be? Remember that reclaiming your dreams makes you stronger. And it doesn't mean that you're being self-centered. It's a different kind of selfish. The selfish where you are all of who you can be and make the biggest difference that you can is who your partner wants you to be. And I invite you to think about what it would be like to be with a group of people who support you in that. Text me about it. Comment. Email me, rich@richinrelationships.com. And remember that a man who knows where he's going is a lot easier to trust, respect, and love. In the meantime, have an incredible day and move towards that amazing tomorrow.